For this session, we will discuss accounting for joint products and byproducts. So joint products, these are individual products, each with significant values, which are produced simultaneously from the same raw materials and same manufacturing processes. For example, a soybean oil and soybean meat are joint products which result from the processing of soybeans. Joint products also occur in the meat packaging industry and in many natural resource refining industry. So the characteristics of joint products are: first, joint products have a physical relationship that requires simultaneous common processing. Processing of one of the joint products result in the processing of the other joint products. When additional quantities of one joint product are produced, the quantities of the other joint products will increase proportionately. So the second characteristic is manufacturing of joint products always has a split-off point at which separate products emerge to be sold or is processed further. Costs incurred after the split-off point do not generally cause allocation problems because they can be identified with the specific products. And the last characteristic is none of the joint products is significantly greater in value than the other joint products. This is the characteristic that distinguishes joint products from byproducts. Okay, so next slide. We will tackle here the joint cost and the split of points. So joint costs, or JC, should not be thought of as a new type of product in that they consist of direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead. A major difficulty inherent to joint cost is that they are indivisible because joint costs are not specifically identifiable with any of the products being simultaneously produced. Additional processing costs, sometimes called separable costs, are incurred by individual products after they have emerged, which is called the split-off point, from the common raw materials and or the common manufacturing processes. Additional processing costs simply consist of the additional direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead incurred for the identifiable products after the split-off, in contrast to the joint cost, which are incurred for the benefit of all products prior to the split-off point. So the outputs of a joint process are your joint product or your main product. Second is your byproduct, and third is your scrap. So a joint process produces more than one product line. A product that has a sales value resulting from a joint process is classified as a joint product, as a byproduct, or scrap. Joint product, also known as main products, are the primary outputs of a joint process. Each joint product has a substantial revenue generating ability. Joint products are the main reason why a company enters into the production process. On the other hand, byproduct and scrap are those that come out incidental to the joint process. Both are saleable, but their sales value alone would not be sufficient for management to justify undertaking the joint process. For example, Dunkin' Donuts will never undertake donut manufacturing to generate the donut holes or the munchkins sold, sold to the customers. Also, Bacolod sugar mills would never undertake sugar cane processing simply to generate molasses. Okay? Over time, a company can change a product classification because of changes in technology, consumer demand, or ecological factors. Some, fact, some products originally classified as byproducts may be reclassified as main products. For example, chicken wings are sold before at a lower price compared to legs and breast, but now they are sold at a price similar to other parts of a chicken. Some products originally classified as scrap may be reclassified as byproduct. For example, chicken entrails, feet, blood, and head may be classified as byproducts while before they were classified as scrap. So you're accounting for joint products. So your methods of allocating joint cost. Joint products cost must be allocated to individual products in order to determine the ending work in process and finished goods inventories, cost of goods manufactured and sold, and gross profit. As mentioned earlier, specific identification is not possible. Therefore, an appropriate method must be used to allocate a portion of the joint costs to individual joint products. Three methods are commonly used to allocate joint costs. First, the physical output method, which is based on volume, and the other two on market values, which are the market value as split off method and the net realizable value method. So we have here your methods of allocating joint costs. You have your physical measure, your market value method, as well as your constant margin approach. But we will focus on the physical measure method and the market value method. So first, we have here your physical measure, physical output or average unit cost method. Okay? So joint costs in the average unit cost, which is based on units produced, the joint costs are simply divided by the number of units produced to arrive at the joint cost per unit. Cost per unit is equal to the total joint cost divided by the total units produced. So to allocate the amount, you have your units produced all over your total units multiplied by the total joint cost. You will then have your cost per unit. Okay. So let's take for the other physical measure, we have here your weighted average method, which is based on weight factors. So weight factors assigned to each product. So the assignment is dependent on the manager. So the manager determines what is the weight for this product. Let's say for product A, you assign zero point 0.5. For product B, you assign zero point 0.2. Okay, so it really depends. It's not given. It is given the problem. And that the weight factor is multiplied by the total units to arrive at the weighted units. To get the weighted average unit cost, you have to divide your total joint cost all over your total weighted units. So the allocated amount is equal to the weighted units times your weighted average unit cost. Let's take this for example, using your physical measure. We have here the given, you have three kinds of products A, B, and C, which have the following quantities. For A, you have 15K. For product B, you have 45K. And for product C, you have here your 80K. And we also have here given separable cost and final sales value. But for physical output, we will not use this. We will disregard this separable cost and final sales value. So what is important here is that we should know the total units produced. Okay, and for the example, the total unit produced is 15 plus 45 plus 80 is 140,000 units. And here it states here that your total joint cost in producing products A, B, and C amounted to 1.4 million. The materials amounting to 850, to labor 200, and overhead 350. And there's a caveat here which says that selling cost is estimated to be 10% of sales price. Again, we will not use this in your physical measure method. Okay, so let's get the answer for the average unit cost first. Again, review cost per unit would be your total joint cost all over your units produced. So I'm looking at the name of the method. It's called average unit cost, which again is based on the units produced. So our variable here would be our units produced. So let's lay it out here. Okay. So we have here your joint products A, B, and C, and then sum the total of the quantities of A, B, and C. You will get 140,000 units. Okay, then allocate it proportionately. So for joint product A, you get 15,000 divided by 140,000 units. You will get 10%. So for 45,000 units divided by 140,000 units, you will get 32%, and the remainder would be allocated to product C. So when you get already the ratio of the uh, of the um, uh, of the byproduct units all over your total units, you multiply this now with your total joint cost. Okay, so you divide it proportionately among the joint products. So the allocated amount for joint product A is 150,000. For joint product B, you would get 450,000, and for joint product C, you would get 800,000. So that is your allocation of joint cost for average unit cost. It's now um sorry, there's another way also in computing for the um in knowing the allocation of the joint product cost. What you have to do here now is mm, to get the cost per unit. Okay, so how do you get the cost per unit? Again, the middle one, this one, you get the cost unit by dividing your um the joint cost by your total units produced. So 140, 1.4 million divided by 140,000 units produced, you would get 10,000, you get 10 pesos as your cost per unit. So here you fill in this gap, the 10 pesos, you allocate it among, you assign the 10 pesos cost per unit for products A, B, and C. So you multiply the units produced by your cost per unit, you will get the same allocated joint cost. Okay, so that's another approach. Next is your weighted average method, which is based on weight factors. A weight factor is assigned to each product. The weight factor is multiplied by the total units to arrive at the weighted units. The weighted average unit cost is equal to the total joint cost divided by your total weighted units. The allocated amount is equal to the weighted units times your weighted average unit cost. So again, using the example, this given, okay, we will use this again. We will use this for the entire other methods. So let's please take note here for units produced for A, 15, 45, and 80. Okay, so this is very similar with your average unit cost method. The only difference here is that for the units produced, you multiply it by your weight factors. So here, it says here that the for product A, the weight assigned is 10 points, and the for product B, 8 points, and for product C, 5 points. So what you have to do with the points is to multiply it according to their units produced. Okay, so we will know in here the weighted average unit cost is 1.53 pesos. Okay, so it was determined by, again, you multiply your number of units by your points per unit, which this 10, 8, and 5, which again came from this given product A, 10 points, product B, 8 points, product C, 5 points. Okay, so you multiply number of units by your points per unit, you will get your weighted units. So for product A, you have 150K, for B, 360K, and for C, 400K. So you get the total of that, 910,000. You you divide the weighted units with your total joint cost. Okay, you would you have to divide your total joint cost with your total average units of 910 units. That would be your weighted average unit cost, 1.53. So here we'll just lay it down here, and when you get already the weighted average unit cost, you just multiply it by your weighted units to get the total allocation or share in joint cost. Okay, so the primary difference between the weighted average method and in the average and the sorry And the average unit cost is that in average unit cost, you just simply use as a divisor your total units produced. Okay? While for your average method, for your weighted average method, you use your total weighted units as your divisor. Okay? So for your next method, we will now jump into the market value method. In here, um, in the physical measure method, we did not take into consideration the sales price, if there are any disposable costs, separable costs, we did use that. For the market value method, we will now incorporate this. Okay. So first, you have your sales value method or your sales value at split off point. So the joint cost allocation is equal to the total market value of each product divided by your total market value of all products. Okay. Then the result for this, you would multiply to your total joint cost. Okay, to get your share in joint cost per product. So the cost ratio is obtained by, again, dividing the total market value of each product all over your total market value of all products. Your total market value at split off is equal to the units produced times your final sales value. Your approximate sales value at split off is equal to total sales value less your separable costs. Your next market value method is your net realizable value, which is at split off point. The main difference with NRV and sales value method is that in NRV, joint products is equal to the product's sales value at split off point less cost necessary to dispose of the products, such as distribution and selling costs. Okay, so your joint cost allocation, again, similar with your sales value method, um, but the only difference in NRV is that instead of using your total market value, you would get your total net realizable value of each product divided by your total net realizable value of all products. Then you multiply this with your total joint cost. So your approximate NRV is equals to your total sales value, your total sales value less your separable and disposable costs. And here we have your hypothetical market value method, the approximate NRV method, and it has no market values are available for the products. Thus, this must be processed further. So your approximate NRV is equals to your total sales value less separable costs. Let's take this again for example. Okay, but now we will take into consideration and integrate the final sales value. This one, your 75 pesos, your 50 pesos, as well as your 25 pesos. So the total joint cost again is 1.4 million. And there's a note here that says that selling costs is estimated to be 10% of sales price. Okay, so let's determine again the answer using the sales value method. This would be your guide. Okay, so let's start. So the sales valued method, which is your sales value split off point. Okay, so you have your units produced of 140,000 units. For the units produced for each product, for products A, B, and C, you multiply your units produced by your market value at split off point or your selling price, which is your final sales value. Okay, so you multiply your 15,000 units by your final sales value of 75 pesos. You will get a total market value at split off point of 1,125,000, and do the same process for products B and C. 45,000 units times 50 pesos, it is equal to 2,250,000. And last, for your product C, multiply your units produced by your market value at split off point, you would get 2 million pesos. So sum the So sum the total market value split off point for all the products, you will get 5375. Okay? So that to determine the share in joint cost, you would have to perform a cost ratio analysis. So the cost ratio here, how do we determine the cost ratio? We just simply divide the total market values at split off point of product A, which is 1,125,000, divided by their total market value at split off point for all products. So 1125 product A divided by 5375, the total of all products, you would get 21%. So do the same cost ratio analysis for products B and C, you would get 42% and 37% for products B and C respectively. Again, the the this should equal to 100%. And now that you know that your total cost ratio, okay, for each product, you now multiply this cost ratio with the total joint cost amount. So for product A, multiply 1.4 million by 21%, you would get 294,000 pesos. So your share in joint cost for product A would be 294 pesos, 294,000 pesos. For product B, multiply 42% of times 1.4 million, you would get 588,000 pesos. And for product C, get 37% of 1.4 million, you would get 518,000 pesos. So again, the sum of your total share in joint costs would equal to 1.4 million. So that is your allocation for your sales value method. Now here for your net realizable value method at split of point is again your guide. Okay. So in sales value method, we use the just the sales value at split of point. But here we will use your net realizable value. Again, NRV is sales value at split of point less distribution and selling cost. Okay. So we have your NRV here. We've already determined our total market value split of point, which was obtained by multiplying units produced by your sales value. Okay. So your 75, your 50, and I think that's 60 pesos. Okay. So you have here again your total market value at split of point of 5,375,000 pesos. Okay. And your disposal costs. Your disposal cost, how was this obtained? 112,500, 225K, 200K. Again, there's a note here that the selling cost is estimated to be 10% of sales price. Okay, so you just multiply the total market value split of point by 10%, you would get your disposable cost. And there's a separable cost here which is also given. This is your separable cost, your 100, 180, and 250. That is equal to 530,000 pesos, 530K thousand pesos. Okay, so what you have to do now to get the NRV is to subtract the total market value split of point with the sum of the disposable costs and separable cost. Okay, so for product A, you now know your NRV would be 912 and 500 pesos. For product B, 1.845 million, and for product C, 1.55 million. Okay, so get the total again of your NRV and use again your cost ratio analysis. So to determine the cost ratio analysis, you you, you get you divide the NRV for each product with the total NRV. So it is not flashed here the cost ratio analysis. So let's just do it manually. So 912,500 divided by 4.3 million, you would get a ratio of 21%. Okay, so due to rounding off error, we will not get the exact amount here as shown in the slide, but at least you have an idea. So 21% times 1.4 million, you would get 296,578. Now do the same for product B and product C. For product B, 1.845 divided by 4307500, and you would get your cost ratio. You will now multiply it with 1.4 billion. You would get rounded off 600K. And for product C, you would get your share in joint cost for product C would be 503,771. Okay, so the total of this again would be your total joint cost. So for your hypothetical market value method, again, sorry. Now let's jump into constant margin approach. So this is another approach. We have your physical output method, we have your sales value method, and now we have your constant margin approach. So this is a bit of a mathematical approach, but which is seldomly used. So let's just show here the formula on how to on how to determine the constant margin approach. So it's the same gross profit same GP rate for all the products. So what you have to do first is to compute the overall gross margin percentage. So you get your total sales for all products less your total costs, your joint plus your separable costs, then then the difference would be your gross margin. Again, the computation for gross margin rate is your gross margin divided by your total sales. Okay, this is just an inverse relationship with your cost ratio analysis. So determine the cost of a product. You get you multiply your sales value for product with your cost ratio. You will now then get your total cost of product. Then you subtract your separable costs. You will get your allocated joint cost. Okay. So now we are already finished with the accounting for joint products. Let's now shift our attention to byproducts. Again, byproducts, these byproducts are those that come out incidental to the joint process. Both are saleable. I mean, byproducts are saleable, but their sales value alone would not be sufficient enough for management to justify undertaking the joint process. Okay. So there are two characteristics for your byproducts. First is that the product is not the primary objective of the manufacturing operations. And the next characteristic is that the sales value of the byproduct is comparatively low as compared with the sales value of the main product. Again, for byproducts, it is not the primary objective of the manufacturing operations. And second, the sales value for byproduct is lower than the sales value of the main product. So let's just have your theoretical approaches. So for your accounting for byproducts using the NRV, it is used to summarize the sales value of the byproducts minus all costs related to the processing, storing, and disposing. Work in process inventory is credited. If the byproduct is sold, cash or AR is debited and byproduct is credited. So that is your NRV approach for your byproduct. Next, you have here your realizable value method. It recognizes the value of a byproduct only when they are sold. Take note, only when they are sold. Hence, the sales value of the byproduct less related cost to process and to dispose is presented as either as sales revenue, um, nesting under byproduct, or you may recognize it as other income. Recognize is as a reduction from cost of goods sold. And last, recognition as reduction from cost of goods manufactured. So that is your concept for your joint products and byproducts accounting. Again, take note um, of the differences in determining your sharing joint cost for your physical measure, sales value method, and your constant margin approach method. Okay.